Rebecca's the professional speaker. Welcome to Hello Chaos, a weekly podcast exploring the messy and chaotic lives and minds of founders, entrepreneurs, and innovators. Each week, I have the privilege to speak with founders across the spectrum, founders from different industries, different at various stages, from all startups to mature businesses, all shapes and sizes. Our listeners get to hear the raw, the real, the unvarnished viewpoints and stories, but they get incredible insights on what it takes to start and scale a business, become a better founder, better CEO, and a business leader, building that confidence to lead. Today, I am so excited to have a friend of mine on the show, Rebecca Heiss. She is a PhD, founder of Fearlessness Masterclass, and a new endeavor. She is a co-founder of a new nonprofit called Game Changer. Welcome to Hello Chaos, to the chaos.
Thank you so much for having me on. I love that intro, especially the chaos in founders' minds. That feels so apt. It's just constant chaos out there, but it's good to not be alone in the journey, I guess.
It is. That's one of the reasons we started started Orange Whip as a company, was how do we build a more connected community, but also just to get to normalize things out there. You aren't alone. I guarantee, even though we have very similar themes, challenges and barriers, we all come at it from a different way, but you're not alone. There's a lot of similarities in it.
Yeah. I mean, I so often when I'm just talking with people about their stress, I say, your story is my story and my story is your story. And they may not be exactly overlapping, but we have similar themes, right? Whether you're a founder, whether you're a stay-at-home mom, whether you're a stay-at-home dad, whether you're a leader, like there are themes in stress and in life that we all share.
That's right. So
that's special.
So your PhD is around stress management. Is that
kind of? It's stress physiology. So it's understanding the hormones and why those hormones make our brain do funky things. Yeah.
And then, okay, so just how did you go from, being in more of the medical physiology, and then now you're a founder of Fearless. How did that all happen? The evolution.
Oh my gosh.
Because your story is pretty incredible of how you've, your journey has evolved, and it's still evolving.
Yeah. I mean, we could spend the next hour talking about this. I mean, like, where do we want to begin? When I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
Actually, that's I'm going to start there really quickly because when I was 8 years old, like my sister was checking out the appropriate books from the library. She was checking out like Little Women and all of this like classic literature. And I'm checking out books like Better Than a Lemonade Stand, 15 Ideas for Kid Entrepreneurs. Like I was always interested in business and building something. I always wanted to create something. And I think at heart, I was a creator and I am a trained scientist. So what I ended up doing through school was doing the thing that I was good at. And I loved creativity. I loved the arts. But I stuck to the safety net of what I was good at, which was science.
Right.
Science and math. And so I went through school and stuck to science and math. And I just started collecting degrees, honestly, because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So
you're like, let me be a sponge. Let me just bring it on.
Yeah, I want all the things. And so little known fact, most people don't know this about me, but my first master's degree is in ornithology. So
what?
I'm a bird nerd.
Oh, I was like, what is that?
It's very random.
Looking at Chandler, she's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I studied birds. I actually studied American crows for 10 years.
What?
So at one point in time, like I was the predominant biologist. Like if you needed a crow expert, I was a world expert in corvids, which is like crazy.
What a fun fact and very interesting.
Really random.
Yeah.
But that's actually where all of this started. So
I feel so unworthy. Like my fun fact is, I was a nerd in DC Comics, and I wrote my college thesis on the history of Batman and its influence on pop culture media. So,
dude, that is so much cooler. What are you talking about? That's amazing. What a fun fact.
You got your master's in what? How do you pronounce it?
Ornithology.
Ornithology. Okay.
Yeah, and wow. To this day, bless him, my dad is like telling people still, he's like, she's an orthodontist. I'm like, no,
No.
not. So close, but so very. Anyway, that was my first. And then I got really interested in evolution, human behavior. So I got a master's degree in evolution, human behavior. And the much shorter version of a much longer story is I'm in Spain actually doing crow research, and I get a call from an advisor who's like, hey, I need someone. He's like a major stress physiologist, like really well known. And he goes, hey, I need somebody to come do a postdoc with me, and you'd be great. I was like, that's cool. I don't have a doctorate. There's this pause, and he's like, I need someone to do a doctorate in my lab. Would you come? And I was like, I had no intention. So anyway, I did a doctorate in stress physiology. The work was so interesting, and I was in academia, and I was teaching and loving the research. But there came a time in my life where, unfortunately, my sister-in-law, who was a second sister to me, was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And it's one of those moments that just like pulls the rug out.
Yeah.
You take a really close look at your life. And I realized in that moment that if that had been my diagnosis, I'd be really disappointed with the life that I'd led. So I quit my job, sold my house, and divorced my husband that month.
Whoa.
Not a great plan, not a great plan. I didn't really have a plan.
Right. But you were just like
toward anything.
Those moments, they do shape it. January, I'm just going to side note on a little short story of me too, it does happen of when I was 30, we had in like a 2-year period, we had 6 friends of ours from high school that all were killed in car accidents or cancer. And we lived in Indiana, and it was just one of those, I was like, we've got to, I don't want to live here. Like, I don't want to be in the Midwest. It is time. Like, so you do make these big, huge decisions when you do realize like life is too short. And what are we doing?
I mean, it's so funny. Like, this is literally me taking my own medicine, because I talk about, I'm researching stress, right? And how people make decisions under stress. And here I am doing the thing, and then recognizing, oh, wait, I have all of this research. Why am I not applying it to practical problems like this moment? So I started, kind of following my own advice, as it were, like pulling things from the research, and I'm going, wait a second, people are seeing stress wrong. It's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just energy. How do I use this energy that I'm feeling to point me towards something rather than just away from that relationship, that job, that house, that whatever.
Right.
And that's really how I started on this journey. There's a lot more to the story, but that's a good foundation. Yeah.
So you've been doing like so what is the Fearless Masterclass? What is that? What that you founded?
The Fearless Masterclass is a 52-week. It's like a full year of how to show up for ourselves. There's sort of 6 chapters, and it's divided into identity. So knowing yourself, recognizing who you are, showing up like in those moments where you're going, I think most of us can probably relate to the quarter life or midlife or 3/4 life crisis of just going, wait a second, who am I? Why am I? What am I doing? What's my why? So really knowing yourself. The second chapter is about understanding rejection and failure, and how those play into our lives. The third chapter is really around stress and managing change. And then we move into imposter syndrome, and then setting boundaries. And then the final chapter is actually my favorite, believe it or not, because it's a little woo-woo. So disclaimer, I hate the word manifestation. I hate it. I really do, because every time I hear it, I'm like you're telling people to just like think about things and then they come true.
Right.
Okay. And
as I'm like, let's manifest that together, which I've said I can't 1,000 times on the podcast.
Which I so get it, because the reality is, yes, and right. Manifestation is actually scientifically, there's some science there.
Because if you say it, you acknowledge it,
and you start to see it,
and you start
look
seeing
for
it.
And
exactly.
Right. So the 6th chapter is manifestation for skeptics, and it takes all of the science of manifestation and allows skeptics like you know who, to show up and create a space for themselves where they are looking towards something, not just I don't want that. What do I want?
Right.
So that's the Fearless Masterclass, and companies go through it, as teams, individuals have gone through it. It's life work, honestly, and
Right.
I'm pretty proud of it.
And you've had to put yourself through those six steps, I'm sure, and put it to practice. So what did you discover about yourself?
Oh, such a good question. I think the first thing I discovered is I had been playing it safe too much, because I believed, I believed that everybody else had it figured out. I think this was maybe my biggest learning.
That's a big aha right there. I mean, because say that again. I mean, it's hitting me. So
yeah, I believed that everybody else had it figured out, and that I was the only one showing up struggling, not knowing the direction, not knowing the way, not knowing any of the things that I needed to do to produce the thing that I wanted to do. And so one of the biggest realizations was, oh my gosh, nobody knows what they're doing. Like we're all just kind of doing the best we can and making it up as we go along. And like some of us are a little more successful about hiding behind the frame of like, hey, of course I know, and these are the steps. And you just go 1, 2, 3.
Social media has kind of done that of like,
oh, for sure.
The veil, like let's strip off that. But I had those moments too of, I lived in the boardroom, and you would get so intimidated of, they have too much experience. They've got all these like acronyms, and then it was my aha. I think like after I started the Bright, it was about 5 years in, I started recognizing of, oh my gosh, it doesn't matter what their title is. They really don't have an understanding of like marketing and branding and like there is a lack of understanding, but then that's where I come in, I've just like, there's an opportunity. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And I think because we know it and we think like, oh, well, this is common sense. I know it. Of course, everybody knows it. And the reality is, no. You know it, but like not everybody does. You're pretty specialized. Like to me, I look around and I think this is what happens to adults. This is one of my fundamental beliefs. I think as we're growing up, we're looking at one another, and everybody's learning everything at the same time, right? Like you're looking at JJ's riding her bike and she's learning how to ride, and she's falling off and I'm falling off, and that's great. We're learning this together. And then we hit a certain age and we don't see the failures anymore. We don't see the learning, the trying, the not playing it safe, the going in and like, oops, sorry, I screwed up. And so we get this mindset that everybody else knows the things. And we're just sitting here going, I'm an adult. How did I become an adult and I still don't know the things?
Right.
And so, I'll never forget the first like CEO that I coached. And I was like, really? You? I think I have some advice to give. Like, how do I know something that you don't?
Right.
And recognizing, I think that we all have these specialty areas of knowledge that really are special.
Right.
And so not knowing everything is actually a gift. And owning the piece that you do know and letting go of the other stuff so that you can continue to grow and learn.
Right. So as you've gone through your channel and reshaping how you show up, what type of business you're in, what's been the most challenging part of founding what you founded?
I'm going to answer that in 2 different ways.
Yeah.
I think the most challenging part at the start was giving myself permission to do it anyway. Not knowing what I'm doing, to do it anyway, to start a little. I want to give a shout out to Nathan Robinson. He's a creative in the area, and he coined that phrase. I've stolen it because I love it. Start a little. Just start a little. It doesn't matter where you're starting, but start a little. And taking some of the risks that it required. Like I will never forget, I'd been, I would say, tumbling through life a little bit right after that moment where I blew it up. Yeah. And I was panicked. Honestly, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm writing a book. Yeah, I'm writing a book, but I'm like also not independently wealthy. And I'm like, I need to be able to pay for things. And I'm really like in this moment of scarcity going, shoot, what's my next move? And I'm applying to jobs and I'm not getting anywhere. And I know that I want to speak at this point, right? I know that that's my calling. And I get a job. right? I get a job, and it's a good job. Like, it's a job that I actually think I could have enjoyed, and I have to make a decision. And I initially accept the job because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been working for. And I need the income. I need this. And so I think probably the hardest thing was to make the call back. And I called them back like within 5 minutes. I was like, hey, I'm so honored. I'm taking this in a different direction. And I hung up the phone like, oh my God, what did you do? But like, really like burning the ship off the island. Like, I now have to make it because there's no other option.
Yeah.
And I am not recommending that. That is not my recommendation. If you can do it, if you can build something as you have employment, great. That's a much safer route. But for me, that was one of the most challenging moments is to let go of the
you
fear.
knew yourself to go, if you didn't, it would have taken you longer because it wouldn't have been the hunger.
Crappy. That's right. I created scarcity for myself. And and it worked. And I got lucky there, I think. That's one of it. And I think the other piece, the other biggest learning or challenge was recognizing that I don't have to, and in fact, I shouldn't do it alone.
Explain.
So speaking is one of those worlds that it's a pretty isolated industry, right? Like, when I get hired to speak, it's me. Like, I'm the keynote, and then that person or that company doesn't hire me again because they've seen my stuff, and it's going to be 10 years before we even interact again.
Right.
And so it can be a very isolated, lonely space. But what I realized was the more I surrounded myself with other speakers that like, I didn't see them as competition. I saw them as like, okay, we can build each other.
Yeah.
Their community, right? A great speaking coach who introduced me to other speakers, great bureau agents, great marketing teams, right? My designer is incredible. Great book team, right? The more I really leaned in and said, okay, this is my dream. I'm manifesting my dream. I'm putting it out there. I'm letting you see my dream. And how can we get there? And how can I bring you along for this journey? And what part of it do you want?
Right.
That became so much more powerful because it's now less about me and more about this impact that we want to create. And that was a powerful switch.
Yeah. That wasn't a challenge. That was like an aha.
Yeah, maybe. I think maybe the challenge was trying to do it alone for so long. Just like,
were there myths, or like, did you walk in there going, I thought having my own business or starting this,
oh my gosh, yes,
was going to be this? What is there like myth percent? Like, be a myth buster.
Here's my biggest myth. I thought being an entrepreneur, I was like, I'm going to give myself freedom.
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal, right? That's like
time. Yeah. And here's the reality is, I have in a lot of ways.
Right.
I have the freedom to pursue the things that I want to pursue. I have the time. Like, I can sit and I'm going to be honest with y'all, I'm wearing sweatpants.
Yeah.
Like, it's a Friday morning at 10:30, and I can have a podcast with a friend and stay in my sweatpants with my dog sitting on the couch. Like, that's a gift, and that is freedom.
Yeah.
What I don't think I expected was I never turn off.
Yeah.
Right. There is always something more to do. And that is a blessing and a curse.
Right.
Because I am passionate about it, it's a blessing.
You can't turn it off. You really can't.
You can't.
I'm the same way. And I think every founder I've talked to, it's like, we just, there is no down.
No. And again, like, with my research and with this stuff, like, I love that. And I know that drives purpose and meaning for me. However, I have been a part of, I'm a serial entrepreneur. There have been other things that I've done that have failed miserably. And I know why. It's because I wasn't passionate about it. I was just doing it for the wrong reasons. I didn't have a good why.
Right.
And I just turned it off. I was like, I don't care enough. And it failed.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah.
What is something, I mean, you've done some self-discovery and you've done, but what's something that you really like about yourself that you wish other people would recognize more of?
Oh, I was so good with the first part of that question. All right, I'm going to answer the first part.
Okay.
The first part, I think the thing that I like the most about myself is probably the fact that I bring joy. I think I'm a pretty energetic person that brings joy most of the time to people's lives. So, but I want to, put a caveat around that because I think people recognize that. I get that feedback, which drives me to do that more.
Right.
So is there something that I wish people would recognize? Oh no, I feel like people look, I'm in an industry where if I do a good job at my job, by the way,
Right.
people applaud me.
Right.
That probably
I'm
says
like,
more about me than
you're like, the spotlight is always on. Do you ever,
Yeah.
but I know you're the type of person, like, I love being on the stage and doing speaking.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you, it wears like I have to go home and because I love being there. It's because I'm speaking and I'm educating, I'm informing. That's what drives me is when I get to open up somebody's perspective around marketing, branding, or advertising or whatever. But I know I've got to decompress. I don't get that sense from you. Like, I think you would go out and go, let's do it again. Like, where are
that's
we?
interesting. So that's interesting, JJ. That's probably the thing that I wish people recognize the most is, I have a lot of energy and I feel so driven toward teaching and being on the stage and creating impact for people. And the thing that I wish more people would recognize is I am exhausted most of the time.
Really? So you do get
most of the time.
Like I have to go and be like, if I've done an all day workshop with a client, I'm like, I am noodle brain, and I don't, and not just noodle brain. It's like I've got to do a lot, especially if I have another one the very next day or the next day. It's like after I kind of get through that and do all that motivate, to get there, and I love it. It's like, don't get me wrong, I love it. It's my calling. But then I can't talk to people for like 3-4 days after that.
JJ, I feel that. I feel that. I come off the stage and I won't I'll be in a beautiful city somewhere. I will Uber Eats into my hotel room.
Yeah.
Seriously. And it's, I have no problem taking myself out to dinner. It's not that.
Yeah.
It's that I don't even want to make that interaction, that effort to interact with the waiter or waitress. Like I love people. And I have to spend that time taking care of myself.
Yeah, because I hate event like network. I found a way to do it in a way that brings me joy. Just easier. I wouldn't even say it brings me joy. I've just found a way of like, how do I bring my purpose into those interactions? Because otherwise, if you see me at an event, I'm usually holding up a wall in the back. Or I'm just like, you know what? I don't even want to go. Like I don't look for those things. I know I need to do those for, business and networking, all that. But I found like when I get there and then I'm like, okay, I got to do these things. I love it when I'm there. But then I'm like, like, I'm sorry, Chandler, I'm going to have to cancel these meetings in the morning because I can't even think about that.
Yeah, I think there's a want to and a have to. And this actually brings up another really good point for me is showing up authentically is really challenging. And it's something that I try very hard to do. And it's something that I struggle to balance with the career that I'm in.
Right.
Because you just like, this is who I am. Who I am is ponytail and sweatpants, and you're going to find me out hiking Swamp Rabbit Trail. Usually with no makeup on, usually in a cutoff t-shirt and sports bra, because that's who I am. And I work with really large companies who have an expectation of how I show up and how I present myself. And, would I shave my head and stop dyeing it? Probably. But there's a balance in maintaining that brand and that image as well.
Right.
So yeah, maybe that's one of my challenges too, I think, as an entrepreneur, is being the face of the brand.
Yeah. And I'm really, guys, and yours is interesting because you've got a brand, but a company brand that you're putting out there, but also it's tied to your personal brand. Yeah.
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 Me.
How How do you deal with that? Was that a challenge for, I mean, I'm curious.
Question. That's a good question.
Because
Yeah.
it's something that I had to evolve. It was coming from corporate agency, big agency. I was one that, totally thrived in, and I was so confident and I could, but I was under somebody else's brand. It was one of the hardest shifts for me, mindset. And I felt the imposter, all that, the imposter syndrome, all that stuff. And I didn't think that was like a big aha for me. I'm like, I didn't expect that. Like I thought when I started the marketing agency, coming from 25 years in agencies,
Yeah.
and I knew my purpose. I knew I could help a lot of other companies that couldn't afford a big agency but needed the same thinking.
Yeah.
And but it was like, whoa, it's all me. I mean,
Yeah.
and it was one of the reasons I didn't want my name, why I made it Bright Marketing,
That's
because
so interesting.
I didn't want to be another one of those. And it's a known thing in our industry. If you've worked for agencies, it became kind of another ex agency person opens up their own shingle, and it's, Sutton strategies, Sutton marketing, Sutton
Yep.
or it's like, if it's three people, it's, Sutton, Smith and Jones or whatever. And I just I didn't want to be another one of those. I wanted to create something that was bigger, that was bigger than me, that didn't have my name on it. But also I was like, I was already struggling with it being attached to me and my personal brand. Maybe it was, I look back and go, maybe it's because I didn't really know myself, but I'm glad I don't regret making that decision, but it was something that I was really, 6 months thought process went
Wow.
through,
Yeah.
that journey for me. But it came as a realization a few years later. It was like, oh, I'm really struggling with like, where was the confidence? I was like, where's me from, pre Bright? Like where, like I was, like I had this like confidence,
Yeah.
and I lost it all after I started the business.
So what was that? Like, what was that shift? What made you lose the confidence? Is it because you didn't, was it a dollar sign thing? Like, I don't have this big name behind me now? Or was it
No,
more
it
like
wasn't, because
internal?
it was an all internal. It was
Yeah.
it was the realization of, like I said, hindsight, kind of getting over that. But it took like 3 to 5 years after we were growing like rapidly. But it was this intimidation of one, um, I thought, oh, I'm walking into this, there's not another CEO
There's no
that's like
safety
gonna,
net.
the safety net of,
Yeah.
and it was all on me. So those things, I got hit, like incredibly surprised by the amount of misogyny that
I
I
was just
faced
going to ask you, like, was there
when,
also an element of being a woman and saying, like,
y-
I
y-
have to prove myself?
well, not just prove myself, literally, I was getting, um, questioned in the business community of, um, who's the men on your team that's going to lift you up. Those were words that I received, and I'm going into, pitch new business or networking. Is your husband attached to this business? And now, he works for me now, but he wasn't at the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, no. And it was, when I bought our office building in 2014, it was when and it was like, it also, that's where some of the ahas hit, where, people were, these were CEOs. These were people that I had worked with for a decade or so at another company, and they were like, they were cheerleaders when I started the company. Like, good for you. You're really smart. You're the one that led our team do it, do it, do it. But I'm not ready to give you business. And
You
it was
still have to,
I still
yeah.
have to prove myself. And so,
Yep.
and then it was like a year later when we opened bought the building, it was, oh, like, this isn't just like a side gig for you. You're not just like the other women we see in the marketing space, like, you're a business. And I'm like, I've got, at that time, I was like, yeah, I've bought a bit and I have 10 employees. I'm like, this isn't a hobby. Like, this is my, and I was like, but these are people that had known me for 15 years in the business space. So of course it's like, I'm 2 years, it just started to knock, like, it just knocks you down a little bit. And that was like, a couple of years later was my aha of like, oh, these people really, like, I shouldn't be intimidated because I do have knowledge that they don't know, that they've shielded themselves to let anybody else know that they don't know. But how do I build, how do I use that knowledge to get people to, to build that trust? Because I was like, I have advice, I have gifts, I have knowledge that they need that's going to benefit them.
That's right.
And that was, that was like 2017, 2018. But so, I mean, I started the company in 2013. So you look at just like that evolution. And then, you've gone through like the other valleys of, coming post COVID and stuff. So I've kind of gone through, I call it someone told me they're like the two emotions of being an entrepreneur is euphoria and depression.
I think that's
and I was like, oh my God.
It's rarely flatline, right?
It's rarely flatline. You kind of go through these ups and downs. But yeah, that was, those were some of my little ahas of not everybody knows. You do lose, like, you've got to rebuild yourself. And I think where a lot of founders and entrepreneurs, where we find that commonality is we've had to do so much more self-discovery and self-reflection. And I also think even if you're not a founder entrepreneur, but you're at a CEO level, you're climbing, it gets very isolated, very alone. And and a lot of it comes on your team doesn't like you. Oh my God. They don't like me, or they don't like everyone takes that accountability and that responsibility if they're a good business leader.
That's right. Self-awareness.
Self-aware, like, you've got to go way deeper. We have found, like, just talking through and we poll, CEOs and founders and entrepreneurs, that is the number one, the themes that we hear more often. I find it fascinating.
So this is a fun aside, because it leads me directly to my biggest failure as an entrepreneur. So I founded a company called IQity, and IQity, terrible marketing name, I know. It's like IQ, like IQ and like emotional IQ, but it's spelled CUE. So like you're getting a Q. And the whole idea behind IQity was exactly what you're talking about. When you get to the top, you don't know. It's really hard to get an honest reflection of how you show up in the world. And, people are either going to be, kissing up to you, and telling you all the things that you want to hear, or they're going to be scared of you, or there's so many reasons. So, this company was an app, and it's like a 360 review that you could do 365 days of the year. And so you'd fill out, 3 traits or things that you'd want to know about yourself. You'd rate yourself on a sliding scale, 1 to 10, and then you'd send it out to your friends, family, colleagues, whoever, and they'd rate you anonymously over the course of the next week. And so you get this constant, like, source of feedback. Here's what I thought. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is brilliant. Like, who doesn't need this? Everybody needs this. And it democratizes this big thing that's usually an expensive thing for leaders, and only the get it. You can do that for everybody.
Right.
Here's what I didn't count on. 2 things. 1, I didn't count on the fact that I wasn't as passionate about that as I was about 50,000 other things. I just thought, here's a need in the market. I'll just create something that fills that need, which is what I did. And then I didn't count on the fact that nobody really wants that feedback. People say they do, but there's so much fear in getting that. That there's this massive barrier to overcome. And only the very best leaders are going to say, oh, I want that constantly. Come on. And that's a rarity out there. So anyway, that was a massively, and I mean, like, I lost everything. All the money that I'd made, gone. Just total restart on that. So yeah. Huge failure.
I don't know if it was a failure.
Euphoria. Oh, euphoria and depression. Euphoria, depression. I'm going to make everything that's going to change the world. Complete depression.
Yeah. And it's because of fear. Yeah. Is that what got you to do? Is that why you called it the Fearless Master? Was part of that, or
that Fearless
learning?
has been the constant theme of my entrepreneurial journey, because it is not that it's not that we should be fearless. Don't jump into the cage with a hungry tiger. That's a terrible idea. Like, that's just dumb. But when we can recognize fear, feel it, and then just minimize it just a little bit, just step back from it for a little bit and actually get a cognitive perspective of it and say, is this actually life or death?
Right.
Is this something that I really truly should fear? Rejection is one of those big ones, right? Like, everybody's afraid of rejection, which is fair. Like, you get kicked out of the tribe, you die. Like, evolutionarily, that's a reasonable fear. But today, you reject me, and JJ, it's gonna hurt because we're friends. But I'm like, okay, I move on.
Yeah.
Or, okay, that's a fair rejection. What does she need? How do I approach this differently so I get a different answer? And so it's really, I'm trying to remember. I think it was Desmond Tutu. Who was it? I'm going to get this wrong. The quote is basically, I've never failed. I either win or I lose.
Yeah.
Or sorry, I either win or I learn.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I either win or I learn. And so, yeah, I lost my train of thought there, but
I used to say, like, oh no, we fail forward. And I've tried to not use failure in my vocabulary anymore, because I don't feel like it's a fail. We're just learning lessons. So either you're learning to win, or you're learning another way to do business, or to do world,
It's a not yet.
Yeah.
It's a not yet.
Not yet.
The world's not ready for it yet. Doesn't mean you screwed up. It means it's a not yet.
Right.
For you, for the world, for whatever.
So, okay. So, if you could change 2 things about your business today, what 2 things would you change?
Gosh, that's a good question. What 2 things would I change about my business? I would change myself. Honestly, because I am the controller of my business, and I think one of the things that I need to work on yet still is this idea of this scarcity mindset, because I think as entrepreneurs, especially at the very start, and we talked about this, like, I created that for myself.
Right.
And now as my business has taken off, like, I still am stuck in that a little bit. And so every opportunity, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, let's do it. And my calendar is so full right now that I'm not taking time to, like, breathe and actually take care of myself so that I can continue the work on a long-term scale.
Right.
And
you got to schedule stuff for you.
That's right.
Yeah.
And hold to it, because I do. I calendar everything out.
Right.
And then I'm like, well, that's flexible. Oh, I need to be better about boundaries for myself. Right. Yeah. So I think that's probably the thing that I would change the most for me. And then if I can do this for, like, an industry, can I shift it to the industry?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think at an industry level, I would love to see more community in our space. And I'll give a quick shout out to Impact 11. I'll give a quick shout out to Power Words, Public Words, which are 2 communities that are doing this, that are trying to bring speakers together, that are trying to help the industry overall, because I think at the moment there's so much speaker, and I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Yeah. There's a lot of politicking.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm going to, hi, I really love you. I love your work so much. And
yeah.
And that's not me. That's not who I will ever be.
Right.
And I think it actually hurts the industry overall. Because the right people, the right thought leaders are going to rise to the top because they are the best. They be so good they can't ignore you.
Right.
And so instead of taking the time for us to all get better at thought leadership, we're spending too much time, like, seeking out event planners and seeking out bureaus and seeking out clients. And so that's one thing that I'm aiming to shift for myself in my business is sitting back and going, okay, look, I'm not going to be, cold calling and doing all of the reach out, I'm going to be so good they can't ignore me. And I wish we could have that shift for the entire industry, because I think everybody would be better served.
Yeah.
So
that's a nice little aha nugget.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we met a year from now,
Yeah.
which, it's like, not that we met, but like, we're going to go out. I'm taking you out next January.
Let's go.
What are we celebrating?
We are celebrating, we're celebrating so much. We're celebrating the launch of my new book, which will be out. Yep.
And that's called Springboard? Is that right?
Springboard.
Do I see that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We're celebrating, I think more importantly, we're celebrating the massive success of this new nonprofit.
So talk about that.
Yeah. So my co-founder, Lee Irwin, she's a local realtor here. She's incredible. And I recognized that there was this need for programming for women athletes. And really, the two of us are basketball players. We started shooting around at the local YMCA, and we're like, man, we miss this game. We miss this game. And every time we tried to find a place to play and have, a consistent team, we'd get bumped around. There's a ton of guys that are playing, and that's great, good for them. But there's not a space for women to show up and play and create a community. And so we founded Game Changer, which is a community that has really 3 arms. We want to bring together women athletes so that they can lift each other up, find one another across the country, so that they can play. Our main initiative is called Holding Court. And the idea behind that is that we're partnering with facilities that will hold court, they'll hold space 2 hours a week. It's not much, 2 hours a week for women to show up and play. And it creates confidence and builds leadership. And, I can throw 1,000 statistics at you right now about 94% of women CEOs play the sport.
Right.
This is so much more than basketball. I think we're building something right now that is going to create not just health and wealth and wellness for women, but a true sense of community and lifting each other up across the United States. So I'm really excited about that.
Well, good. Well, I hope. No, I'm not going to hope. It's going to be next January. We're going to celebrate it.
Can we just pause? And I feel a little bit guilty saying all this because Jen is on our board. She is incredible and has done so much for us in the marketing. And as I'm saying this, I'm going, am I saying it right? Am I saying it right? I know you gave me a better elevator pitch than that, and I'm going to work on it. But thanks for letting me practice. Thanks for letting me practice.
That's right. So let me, you talk about the community and lifting it. Who is your greatest cheerleader?
My sister.
Your sister.
My sister. So I have a tattoo on my foot that says "Fly, baby, fly." And we both grew up in a really small town, upstate New York. Shout out Norwich. And I think I boxed my dreams for a long time to fit the environment that I was in. And she wrote me this incredible letter when I was just trying to figure out what my next move was. And she signed it "Fly, baby, fly," basically giving me permission to leave that hometown, to get out and to live my life fully. And I'm so lucky to have an incredible local community here, of really powerful women, honestly, and game changers. But my sister is the original game changer for me. She continues every day to support me, to cheerlead me, to push me to be better.
Need that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have any unexpected cheerleaders? Like you were like, oh, I would have never thought you would come to my court.
Oh, I love that. Do I have any unexpected cheerleaders? Yeah. I mean, actually dozens. So many people have shown up for me in different ways that I didn't anticipate. Including a lot of people that I have held in very high regard, and I'm like, oh well, they're at this level and I'm way down here. So, can I please ask you this favor? And and so many, even without me asking, have shown up, stood by my side, and helped lift me. And I'm so lucky for that.
Yeah. I love that question. Oh,
I do too. That's a great one.
that's a good
We
one.
don't give enough. There's a sorry, I'm a speaker. I like to speak. Sorry. Abby Wambach has a book called Wolfpack.
Yeah.
And she talks about pointing. And I love this because in sports, like, somebody does a great pass and you score a goal and you point back to the person.
Right.
And I think so frequently we don't do enough pointing.
Yeah.
To all the people that have lifted us. And
That's right.
I wish I could shout out 1,000 names right now because there's been so many.
The reason I asked that question is that I found just in kind of my journey, I've had so many people I would have not, people that I expected to be my were
Right.
not.
Yeah.
And the people that came to my side to lift me up, support me, were really unexpected. And and they came by the dozens and stuff, but it was, it gave me moments of reflection and just and gratitude that I have, and tried to give back to them equally. And they're like, "Why are you?" And it's like, you don't understand like what you did for me. They're like, I just gave you a call, or I took you. I was like, but the words,
give generously, don't keep score.
That's right.
Yeah, that's it.
And so I love. I think if we just acknowledge, that's why I ask those questions. Like
that's such a good one.
It's to get us.
In fact,
acknowledge
I want to take some more time on that question and really think about that deeply because it's so important.
Yeah.
I think writing, and this is one of my practices, is writing letters of gratitude to people.
Oh,
and I don't do it as much. I don't do it as much as I genuinely want to.
Right.
Not that I should, but I want to.
I do too. So, I give cocktails.
That's okay.
Like, that works. Let's go out for a cocktail.
I love that. I love that for sure.
Is there a piece of advice that you've been given by another founder, another business leader that you really took to heart and it influenced the way you do business?
My grandmother.
And
she wasn't an entrepreneur. Well, yeah, she was in her own way. Her advice to me was, don't let your options be your burdens.
Whoa. Go grandma.
Right? I was struggling to make a decision and I had a lot of options in front of me and I wanted to make the right choice. I really wanted to make the right choice because it felt so pivotal. Which every decision is, right? Every decision is pivotal.
Every decision, yeah.
And she looked at me, she said, honey, don't let your options be your burdens. Whatever you choose will be the right decision. And then it was simple, right? Yeah. Because yes, you make it the right decision. And when you recognize, oh, wait, you know what? This wasn't the right decision. 99% of decisions in life are reversible.
Right.
Or at least like you can pivot.
Or they're a lesson learned, right?
So,
I mean,
right.
And you learn from those.
Always the right choice.
That's right.
Always the right choice. As long as you make a choice. That's maybe the biggest, right, aside is like that cost of inaction is so powerful and so often neglected.
No, that's good. That is good. All right. My favorite question of the whole show is, if you could sum up your entrepreneurial journey in just one word, what would that word be and why?
Come on, Brander. You know what this is. The whole journey is summed up by fearless, because there is always fear in this journey.
Yeah.
And as long as I keep moving forward with a little less fear, and really cognizant of the fear and why I'm having that fear, it's just fearing less. Yeah.
Fearing less. And then
fearless.
Looking ahead, next chapter. Next chapter. What is that word and why?
Game changer. Game changer. Yeah. I mean, the next chapter is building community. One of the things that I have recognized in my own life is I'm so grateful to be given this chance to travel the world and influence people. But what that means is I'm away from my community a lot.
Right.
And so creating community and changing the game for women in particular, I think is so needed, because we play a lot of games. We have to play a lot of games to get in the entrepreneurial space to fit the leadership model.
Right.
And it's time that game changes. So I think doing more work in my community, for my community, I want to be a game changer for others.
What a great way to end. So amazed. I swear I love how these episodes, these shows, these conversations, they go so fast, and I love
They
every one of
do.
them.
They
Yeah.
do.
It's
You have
like
great questions. Gosh, I feel like I need like a whole day to sit back and like, was that really what I wanted to say? Is that true for me? I feel like I just went through a therapy session.
I
Thank
know.
you.
Like, I'm a curious person. I can't help it. That's
Yeah.
I'm in a CEO peer group with uh, several women that I went through a minority business accelerator with, and we get together, a couple times a month, and they're so like, and we have a text, thread, and they're like, okay, here comes Jen with the questions. Here comes Jen with the.
That's
It's like I
great.
can't help it. I
That's such
can't
a
help it.
gift. That is such a gift. I mean, if I could grant anybody anywhere a gift, it would be curiosity. The
That's
gift of
right.
curiosity,
It
for
is. It
sure.
is. It is my heart and soul.
I love it. I love it.
Ah, well, thank you for hanging out. I appreciate it.
Thank
It was
you.
a great
What a gift.
conversation.
What a gift.
Yeah. And for everyone listening and watching, thank you for joining us. This podcast will be available on all your podcast platforms. So subscribe to Hello Chaos. Give us a shout, a like, or maybe a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. We'd love to see it. Share this great content too, and that helps us build a more connected entrepreneurial community. Hello Chaos is one of the many resources brought to you by Orange Whip. That is Orange Whip, WIP for work in progress, because that's what we all are. Orange Whip is a multimedia company dedicated to serving founders and entrepreneurs in affiliate cities. We've designed hyperlocal media platforms to inform, inspire, and to create connections in the local entrepreneurial community. We are in 3 cities today in South Carolina, looking to expand to other cities because every city needs to have an Orange Whip. We've done all the hard work for founders, so you only need to go to one place to find all the information you need, from curated calendars to dynamic roadmaps, to fresh and engaging stories. And again, hearing the real, the raw, the unvarnished viewpoints of founders. If you'd like to be a guest on our podcast or support us, send us an email to hello@orangewhip.com. Thank you for tuning in to Hello Chaos. It is where aha meets oh shit. We'll see you again next week.